pedal when I'm get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by the NMFTA. Let me ask you a question. Do you ship LTL freight? Then listen up, because the NMFC changes went live on July 19th, and they're the biggest updates in the history of freight classification. Now more than ever, accuracy matters. That's why carriers, shippers, and brokers alike are turning to Class IT Plus, the NMFTA's new digital platform for real-time NMFC data. Stop guessing, start classifying smarter, and quote freight with confidence. It's time to get your ship together because the NMFC changes are already here. Learn more at nmfcchanges.com and get started with Class IT Plus at classitplus.com. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today, and we're going to be breaking down everybody's favorite topic right now, and that's fraud. What's going on right now. This is the most attention I think our industry has gotten in, especially at the levels in DC and at the national level and reporting and everything. And, we're just out here trying to make sense of all of this and what are some of those best actions that are happening on Capitol Hill. So I have my good friend, Chris Burroughs with the TIA back on the show. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
It's a pleasure, Chris. Great to see you.
No, man, it's been a little bit here since we saw each other last at Technovations, and we didn't really get a chance to now that you're out there, man, you're busy all the time at these shows now, man. And it's just one of those things where it's I just want to sit down and chat with you about all of this stuff, because I always appreciate your insight on the state of the industry and where things are going and where things are and stuff like that. So, man, what's new with you guys out there at the TIA? You guys have been releasing some information here recently about some fraud hotlines and all that stuff.
Yeah. So obviously the topic of cargo theft and strategic fraud and theft has certainly been top of mind the last few years. I was looking recently, Chris. I pulled up some comments that we drafted to the FMCSA back in 2013. And just looking at these things, looking at these comments that we drafted them, it was patterns of safety violation. They were kind of looking for industry comments on things they should be focused on. Again, this is 2013. So I think I just started with TIA around this time. It was like 2012. Prevent churning of operating authorities by unscrupulous and fraudulent operators to ensure accurate database of active entities. Agency needs to work with state partners, industry stakeholders to further prevent the churning and confusion in the marketplace. We respectfully suggest the FMCSA prohibit the sale of authority numbers outside the sale of a company. So I'm not saying there's a lot of companies talking to the FMCSA back then, but this issue of fraud was certainly on the forefront even back then for us. I know one of the first pieces of legislation I worked on when I joined TI staff was a piece of legislation called the Fighting Fraud and Transportation Act. And it did a number of different things, but really was trying to get down to addressing the double brokers, the chameleon carriers that out in the marketplace. So everything we've had a lot of great conversations over the years, Chris. Everything in DC moves at a snail's pace, a glacial pace, but it's good to see finally it's getting the attention that it deserves. So as part of that, as we continue to look for ways to address this problem, to provide value back to our members in the industry and working with other carrier organizations and shipper organizations, we recently made a trip up to Philadelphia to the FBI field office there and met with those folks. There's the division there dedicated just to dealing with cargo theft and strategic theft. And as part of that, in our discussions with them, we said, hey, we've got 2,000 member companies within TIA. We're hearing from these folks on a daily basis, weekly basis of issues of fraud. How can we be helpful to you? And of course, they're willing. They're like, hey, here's our cell phone number. Here's our email addresses. So as we thought about it, we said, what if we put together kind of an internal fraud hotline for our folks to be able to reach out to a member of TI staff, kind of give their report, hit on some of the data points that the FBI would like to see. And then we could aggregate that data, act as an intermediary, if you will, to the FBI. So they're not getting completely inundated from 2,000 companies reaching out, being like, hey, this is my fraudulent incident that happened. So that's what we announced yesterday, that we're going to be doing that. We're going to really look to, we started kind of the infancy. We're going to really ramp it up. There's some other things that, are in the works as well in terms of delivering back member value and dealing with this issue fraud. But we are certainly laser focused on it. It's not getting any better. You'd mentioned in the beginning, kind of what's going on with DOT. We love what's coming out of DOT in terms of Secretary Duffy and this administration. They're making a really big push on addressing some of the fraud that's going out there, not only from kind of the strategic side, but also what you're seeing sort of some of the non-domicile, some of the CDL operators. We just want a safe environment for folks to be able to go out there and operate their business.
No, I'm right there with you. I think that with where Secretary Duffy is taking this, and and I've said this on the show a lot, right? Like, obviously he in the current administration didn't create this problem, but like it's on them to fix it, right? Like at the end of the day, and they are seemingly taking the necessary steps to really get this in front of people and really change the way that things are. Because like with that first piece of legislation you said that you worked on back in 2013, and some of your guys' comments about transferring authorities and selling those companies and stuff like that. Do you think, have you guys kind of pinpointed, and maybe with your conversations with the FBI and everything about this, have they pinpointed any correlations between that and kind of like the rampant startup of where it is today from like a fraud and a strategic theft thing? Because back in the day, man, when I first started brokering, Chris, double brokering it was going on, but like they actually paid the carriers that were hauling the freight, right? Like it was illegal, yes, but like it wasn't to where it is today. So it's like, what were some of those early contributing factors, or is that something that they're like actively working on right now? Like, how did it actually get to the level that it is?
You're exactly right. And back when I joined TA, when we were talking about, quote unquote fraud, it's the scenario you talked about. It was your traditional, what we don't like the term double brokering a lot, but that's kind of what double brokering was.
Yeah.
It wasn't for nefarious reasons. It may have been a carrier who just, took too many loads, or out of convenience wanted to, broker it to another trucking company. But you're right. There was, oftentimes they were paid. And it was, again, not for nefarious reasons, but just really more out of convenience. Obviously, we wanted a level playing field for all entities that were brokering freight to be licensed, which is what part of the Fighting Fraud and Transportation Act was. But as talking with the FBI and a lot of industry folks, there's a lot of great companies that are doing, combative efforts on this. It really, I think, is, there's this very large criminal element. A lot of it's not based here. A lot of it is overseas. Really saw a security gap, a gap in terms of maybe enforcement or authority. And FMCSA and DOT didn't, I don't think that they're, they're certainly not complicit in this. I know a lot of those folks. They're great folks that, we're always willing to have a conversation with us. And want to take the necessary right steps. So this is not a knock on them at all. But there's this criminal element that saw the security gap that existed out there in the marketplace, and started to exploit it, and obviously became a multi-billion-dollar industry for them. And if there's a lack of enforcement and authority, and a lot of holes that they could kind of poke their way into, if you're kind of in that space, why would what's their deterrent not to continue? I always equate to if you you can walk in a bank vault and there's no security, there's no door. Of course, a criminal's going to do that. I mean, that's kind of what we're faced with. But it's good to see what FMCSA is doing. DOT, the FBI is getting involved, heavily involved with it. Industry's really stepped up because it involves everybody. Everybody's got a role in this.
Yeah, I think that the web goes a lot deeper than most people can even really fully comprehend with a lot of this, Chris. I mean, I'm not saying that the Department of Transportation was watching this show back 4 months ago when I said you should probably be looking at the CDL schools and the ones who are issuing the CDLs. And then 4 months later, it may or may not have been crackdown on the CD. I'm not saying that they got it from me, but I'm not saying that they didn't get it from me on that idea on to go after the CDL schools, because to me, it's one of those things, man, where I think it goes a lot deeper because, again, it's highly organized, right? You don't pull off what they've been able to pull off just with just a bunch of random people trying to steal a couple of loads, right? This is organized crime in the digital age. And I think what they have been able to uncover is they're putting their own people through these CDL schools. I wouldn't be again, this is just pure speculation on my part, that they identified the CDL schools, the specific states out there that maybe have the most lax requirements to gain a CDL in some of those states. And then they just farm them through there. And then that's just their way to get in the door and have a driver go rogue. Or I think it's they're also overlooking the simplicity of what an envelope of cash would do at a loading dock. Because everybody knows in any major city out there, Chris, which distribution centers are shipping out what product. I think people are also overlooking the fact of what an envelope of cash would do to somebody who's loading trucks for $20 an hour. And all they need is 2 trailer numbers. And then they can go in there and then, again, liquidate the entire shipment. But I think that it's a really good first couple of steps that they've taken to cut off the CDL schools. And then again, I think that it has to be a set federal standard. I'm the last guy that wants more government over their eyes and stuff in our pockets. But I think it's gotten to that point now where they have to have a set standard. All 50 states must abide by it. And that's it. There can't be any gray area. They have to remove the loopholes, which, I mean, you've been in DC for a long time. That city's built on loopholes. And I think when it comes to this stuff, they have to close this. They have to do something, because how many more videos do we need to see out there circulating on social media of another family or other people getting killed because there's somebody who's operating a semi that shouldn't be operating a semi?
Yeah, absolutely. And that really speaks volumes to the leadership that's going on with this Department of Transportation. There's a lot of talk about getting the right guy or woman during the right time for a position. And we've had numerous conversations and more, in the future with the FMCSA Administrator Derek Bars. And I truly believe he is the right guy at the right time to address this problem. Obviously, with his history in the law enforcement space, we had a long conversation with him when he was going through the nomination process about this topic of fraud and cargo theft. And he talked about, how he dealt with it back in Florida, even within kind of the St. Augustine area where he was living. He's like, you got to make it a priority. And he's like, if you don't make it a priority at your local county, then the state's not going to make it a priority, and the FBI is not going to make it a priority. So we got to stop talking about it and do something and actually take action and do something to address it. It speaks volumes to what they're doing at FMCSA and with this administration.
Do you think that they're treating this as more of a matter of national security, that it's kind of elevated to that point? Because again, it's very much proven that it is foreign countries that are running these crime rings that are going on out there. And again, I don't want to say I'm a history buff, but I love history and I've read a lot of things, and that's the first thing that they do when they want to attack somebody from within, right? So why not take over somebody's supply chain? Because I look at it is where it's at now from the cyber perspective, because again, it's not like it's boots on the ground. I'm a big Fast and the Furious guy. It's not like the Dom Toretto shakedown of the semi trucks going on anymore. It's a faceless crime that's happening out there. And then again, so do you think that this is kind of reached to the point where, it is a matter of national security, and that's why it's getting the level of attention that it is.
Absolutely. No, I truly believe that. Yeah. And we've heard as much from the White House as well. I mean, this is, yeah.
I think it's, because it is. It's where, again, it's where we're at today. I'm not going to sit here and hash out the past on how it led to this point. But again, I just like to see that there's an administration that's actually taking action about it as well. And it's great first steps. And that's what we need, right? Because like I've talked about numerous times, like when it comes down to a lot of the stuff out there, I know like the visas get a lot of attention right now. And my thing is I feel like like when it comes down to ELP and visas and everything else, I think that's two separate arguments at the end of the day. Because I don't know if work visas are ever going to go away at all. And I feel like from my seat, I'm like, as long as everybody's operating at the same level that I have to operate as a business owner, it is what it is, right? Like I don't know if that's affecting the market at the levels that a lot of people want to point and blame. I think again, it's that criminal element that's going on out there that isn't actually following the rules. I think like if you have the fear in people that there will be actual repercussions if you break the law, I think that will deter at least some people from having it happen at the level that it is. And you close those loopholes that are in place right now that make it easy to transfer a business or an operating authority. I mean, dude, all you got to do is go on Facebook. People are selling their authorities for $10,000, $15,000 on any Facebook group out there. And then they'll even pay more if you give them your bank account information and everything. So then it looks like they're able to operate as a legitimate business at that time.
Yeah, they're buying everything. They're buying all the credentials. They're buying their FMCSA login. They're buying their load board credentials, everything. So it's a massive problem, and something that we flagged for this administration, the last administration, that these there's a number of problems that are existing out there. And like I said, FMCSA is taking steps, albeit they're slow. We had our fly-in back in September. We had 100 more folks of members of TA coming to Washington, D.C., and Jesse Ellison was kind enough to come, address the group and talk about a few things. And our chairman had mentioned, he's like, it's harder for me to get in my Netflix account than it is to get into the FMCSA.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's dual factor authentication? You don't get any sort of notification if something goes in and changes something within your system. It's like, come on, guys, we got to get this up to modern times in terms of a technology product. And there's a lot of great companies out there that could certainly help the federal government do this. So.
No, I get it. I think that it's one of those things. And do you think that there's going to be any like actual laws put into place here? Are you guys going to be advocating on Capitol Hill with Congress to put something in place to kind of change the current framework of a lot of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. So apparently he doesn't like fraud either.
Yeah.
Hopefully he stops in there in a second. But yeah, absolutely. So we've been working on a piece of legislation called the Household Goods Protection Act for a number of years. There's CORCA, which is the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, which really creates further collaboration, puts a coordination center together. We want all these federal agencies working together to combat this problem. Our legislation really kind of puts the FMCSA's feet to the fire a little bit on the enforcement side of things. So I mentioned that Fighting Fraud and Transportation Act back in 2012. Part of that was establishing civil penalties, enforcement penalties for folks that were double brokering or doing fraudulent activity. There's been, there was no sort of penalties or civil penalties, administered before 2019. Then there was an administrative law judge ruling that said they couldn't do this for civil violations, not safety violations, but civil penalty commercial violations. But again, there was nothing before that as well. There's some legislation. We expect there's the big service transportation reauthorization that's coming out next year that needs to get reauthorized. We're pushing for language to be included in that, which include those pieces of legislation. We're hopeful it gets in.
Mm-hmm. What more should the broker community do out there to support these efforts, right? Is that a call to action of call your local congressman out here, get in front of them to vote to push this stuff through? What can the ground level do? Because I feel like, and I know we've talked about this in the past, Chris, I think like a lot of individuals in this country are like, yeah, everything that happens in DC, like I'm in rural Kansas, what right. Can I do to actually push this narrative through? Is this, a thing where we got to get in front of our local officials about this stuff? Because again, I truly feel that there's a lot of issues that go on in this country at any given moment. But like, if you want to see a change about it, you got to use your voice in any way you possibly can.
No, absolutely. I mean, then that's you nailed it on the head. You got to get involved. You got to get activated. Obviously, if you're a member of TIA, even if you're not a member of TIA, call your local member of Congress. Have that conversation. Talk about the impact of this issue is having on your business, your bottom line. These are jobs. This is revenue. This is money within their district or state. They care about these things. And we, from that fly-in, we've got a lot of great support from members of Congress. Started talking about this issue. We're working with, Senator Ted Cruz, who's the chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee. We have a lot of members based in Texas. We had a dinner with him when we were in Washington, D.C. He cares about this issue now. And I'm not saying he didn't care before, but when he sits down and talks with, 10 to 12 different business owners from the state of Texas, it certainly resonates. So bottom line, get involved, get activated, call your member of Congress, have those conversations.
Yeah, I look at it that a lot of it from my seat is like with fraud and theft, excuse me. I think it's like $1 billion was one of those recent numbers that I had saw out there. And again, like that could like depending on what business gets hit, when they're fraud, like that could be their death blow to their business, right? Like I think that a lot of people overlook how many small to mid-sized businesses are like 30 to 60 days away from going out of business every single month, and the revenue generated from one truckload, you never know, that could be their entire month's P&L at the end of the day. And I think like it has to be, you have to take this approach. Like you have to get active. And again, like go and call these guys. And I mean, just do what you got to do. If they can only, get an email, do what you can to put those tendencies that you see out there. Because I think like for me, from my perspective as a broker, I can tell within a couple of seconds, essentially on the phone with some of these guys, if they're full of shit or not, Chris, because like the tactics haven't changed. They've evolved to a more digital presence of it. And that's why it's like, I'll never book a load with somebody through an email, right? Like if I'm out there and I'm working the load board for a shipment and somebody emails me on it, I'll only take it to a certain point. Then we got to talk on the phone, like plain and simple, because there's a couple of tells that I do that are like almost foolproof that have worked every single time that will ever have me, like it will deter me from ever tendering a load to somebody from that perspective. Because again, I think that they're looking for that easy way in. And I mean, it's like, again, yeah, they are sophisticated, but again, they're looking for the path of least resistance every single time. And if you're willing to open up your books to them for whatever reason, that's more of a generalized statement there. They're going to come after you nonstop. The easier you make it for them, the more they're going to come after you. I think it's that it is as simple as stuff like that.
I couldn't agree more with you. And then, as much the FBI is going to provide some resources as well. They're obviously not going to provide the playbook because they obviously don't want the criminals and folks to get access to that as well. But yeah, we got to make it difficult on these guys because to your point, really, they could be right one time out of 100, and that's somebody losing their business. And it's a massive problem. We're working in conjunction with some of the shipper organizations, obviously the carrier organizations, to provide resources where we can. So we're here to help in any way that we possibly can for the industry.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on the carriers out there that are doing the right thing right now, as long as this stuff continues to trickle down. And if the current administration continues to push at the levels that they are, I think that is only going to benefit the carriers that are out there operating the right way. And in turn, the brokers that are out there operating the right way. This is only going to benefit you. I think it's going to probably be a couple more years. I think it's going to take a little bit more time here. But I think that the more that they push, the better off it's going to be for those operators who are in here, whether you're a broker or a carrier, that are doing the right thing, that are operating legally and ethically. You're only going to benefit from this. I truly feel this way. And it's like, again, it sucks in the short term because there's going to be a lot of I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. My honest prediction is fraud's going to get way worse before it gets better, the harder they push, because it's going to be that I think it's just going to push for that last dash effort to get as much as they can in as short as a period of time. And then they're going to disappear in the night with it. But I want to change course a little bit here, Chris. I want to talk a little bit more on everybody's favorite topic about broker transparency. Where is that at Is it dead? Is it still got any life left in it? Or are you guys looking to like deliver the death blow here pretty soon?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's dead. I know the FMCSA has kind of put it on the, I don't want to say the back burner, but kind of on the back burner a little bit in terms of a regulatory schedule, which isn't super uncommon with any sort of regulation when dealing with FMCSA. I mean, there's some things from the 1980s that they still haven't completed, like getting rid of the MC number. I think that may always exist out there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're still having conversations with congressional offices about it, with the administration, with the White House, with FMCSA. It isn't rulemaking, so it's more of a listen only for those guys. But I wouldn't say it's certainly dead. And earlier this year, I flew out to Kansas City with with our chairman and our vice chairman, and we met with OOIDA. Was obviously one of the main proponents of pushing forward with this transparency regulation or an enhancement of the 1980s rule. I think there potentially could be some common ground. We certainly are optimistic, or not optimistic, but certainly understand some of their concerns. But ultimately, we do oppose the rulemaking that is out there. I think we can work together better to address problems that kind of may kind of piss both sides of the equation off a little bit. I have a great relationship with Louis Pugh, who's our executive vice president. I think the world of him. Actually talking to him this afternoon about another issue. So great guy. We can certainly work together to address some of the problems in the marketplace. So I can't remember the exact date of when they pushed it off to. It was 2026 at some point, maybe May.
Yeah.
But we're having conversations about it still.
I think it's very important, and I was actually really happy to see Louis at San Antonio Capital Ideas Conference earlier this year speaking, right? Because I think like at the end of the day, we probably have a lot more common ground than we truly think, right? And when you go out there, again, you got to advocate for your members just like he does, Chris. At the end of the day, you got to go out there, you got to put your foot down, you got to plant your flag, you got to listen to your members, and you got to advocate hard for them. And again, I don't know if it's just because I'm older now. Like I understand people's stances a little bit more about where they're coming from, because nothing of what OOIDA has ever done, in my opinion, was ever malicious towards the brokerage community. It's been more of, hey, we don't feel like we're getting a fair shake. We want our voices heard. And again, respect that's what you should be doing out there. But I think it's one of those things that, from my standpoint, there's a lot of the data that's out there. It's public information on what brokers are actually making. And I think it's, at times it's more of a rallying cry than anything. But again, I understand why, because when your members are saying, hey, we're bleeding. Like if I called you up, Chris, and said, hey man, my business is about to go under unless this changes. And then you hear it from 25, 30 other members, you're going to start looking into that a little bit more, like, hey, what's going on here that we're not seeing? So again, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. But again, I feel like with a lot of stuff, a lot of the things that I see coming across from legislation in DC and at the state level, if you're operating in an ethical and legal way, you're going to be fine, right? Like there's been nothing out there that I've seen that could be like a potential death blow to the industry, or it would like completely revamp anything. I just think that there's a lot of legitimate concerns that are being tossed across the board that like it needs to be addressed at the end of the day. But again, if you're doing it the right way and you're not raking people over the coals, you're going to be fine.
Absolutely. And then we obviously want our carrier partners to succeed. I mean, that is, as a broker, that's not something that anyone would want, as their carriers to fail or to screw them over. They shouldn't. So no, I appreciate our relationship with OOIDA. We expect Louis back at the conference in April next year. And there is a lot of common ground, kind of full circle, going back to that Fighting Fraud and Transportation Act. That's something we worked on with OOIDA and ATA. And as folks probably remember, part of that was increasing the broker bond from $10,000 to what became $75,000. And as you can imagine, we TIA caught a lot of flack from that from our membership and some folks in the industry, as this was going to be the death sentence to the brokerage industry. How could you support this? And we felt very strongly with our coalition and relationship that we had built with ATA and OOIDA that it was kind of the right thing to do. To get us into modern times, to address some of the common concerns that we were seeing with the old brokering, that they were seeing with some of the payments in terms of the bond stuff. And, starting in January of next year, the FMCSA is going to roll out some further provisions, which were part of MAP 21. So talk about glacial speed. Law was signed in 2012. They're just implementing some of the bond and trust provisions next year. But really to crack down on some of the fraudulent activity that's going on there, making sure that if a carrier makes a claim, they're going to get paid. It's going to go through the right appropriate process, that there's going to be assets readily available to pay claims to carriers. And again, that's something we fully support. We pushed for in that legislative language, as did OIDA, as did ATA. So there is a lot of common ground. Just to wrap it up, and we will certainly continue to work with them to find that ground.
No, I love it. How are we going to get dispatch services held to the exact same standards of freight brokers? Because I feel like that's another avenue where a lot of stuff is being filtered through. And, again, I look at it as that's where I think then, if Duffy and his team are listening to this show, they should start looking into dispatch companies next in regards to double brokering and fraud, because I've personally had multiple dispatch companies drop the old try this MC, see if this one's set up with you line on there, because again, they're not regulated. They represent 25 different other carriers. And again, with your partnership with OIDA, I wonder if those guys are aware that their MC and authority might be being used for another driver to be operating underneath that through the dispatch service that they're contracted with.
We've had conversations with OIDA about dispatch services as well. We had some language included in the national defense reauthorization talking about national security concern a couple of years ago. The report has not been done yet, which is problematic. But as we were talking in the congressional offices, we had one member out of Maryland who was moving parts for Air Force One. Like, do you want a foreign dispatch service, or we're not quite sure who this entity is moving parts, for Air Force One? Yeah. No. And it's like, do you want them moving fertilizer or some sort of other agent that could be used as a huge bomb in front of a building? We've all seen this story over the years. The answer was obviously no. So they put some language in that required the Surface Distribution Deployment Command to come back and talk about what the impact of this would have been, how many of these dispatch services were operating in terms of DoD freight. Like I said, the report hasn't been done. We're working with our congressional leaders to kind of push the needle on that a little bit. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got to crack down on these dispatch services, foreign and domestic, and get them on the same level playing field.
I love it. Chris, thank you so much for your time. Sorry we went a minute over there. I had to get that last question in, but hey man, thank you so much for your time. How does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more about what you got going on at the TIA?
Just visit our website, tinet.org. So perfect. Appreciate it.
No, that works, Chris. Hey, I appreciate your time, Chris. If you guys can't find the TIA at all for whatever reason, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back.